December 28, 1932. MJ's third bath was on last Tuesday, December 20th, and since Thursday her pain is all gone. Her two thumbs are a little stiff. If you remember, the pain leaves first, then the stiffness. She has stood the holiday sun very well. She has had a lot of extra work, trips to town. For me, as I was not so good myself. She is tired, but no more than a well person would be. One more thing about the diet. We thought that no cabbage of any kind included cauliflower, Chinese celery and Brussels sprouts, but I've changed my mind. I believe it was meant for kraut, slaw, etc., or cabbage proper. If we can add these to the diet it will help out a change of vegetables. I have trouble with this diet business. January 10th, 1933. MJ is doing nicely, all the house work, cooking, and caring for me at present. January 18th, 1933. MJ has not been so well this week. She has pains in various joints. She has gotten better. But when she first gets up of a morning her thumb and knee will hurt for a while and sometimes in the afternoon or evening. Second reading. The second reading, given on January 20th, 1933, indicated a definite improvement in the whole system. The treatments previously outlined were to be continued. The following comment on the diet is of interest. Be mindful Tbat the diet is kept in the manner that does not work crosswise with the elements that are being created in the system. As much seafoods as convenient will work with the balancing of the forces in system. For they create a character of element in the minutiae, and supply, to the blood and nerve forces of the system, an assimilated actor of force that works with the activities of the body. Also, green vegetables, as lettuce, celery, spinach, mustard, there is a river greens, and the like. Also those foods that carry sufficient elements of gold and phosphorus are needed. These are found partially from seafoods and partially from vegetables, as in carrots, the oyster plant, and especially in those of that nature. These make for better forces wicks the system than those of the meats that become more active with the other principles in the system that require more gastric forces in their digestion or assimilation. While the latter are necessary for the strength, for the vitality of the system, these may be kept in a consistent manner. Never any hog meat. Very little of beef unless it is of the very lean, and the juices, but mutton and wild game, or the white meat of the fowl, or the like. These are very, very good for the body, provided, of course, they are not taken in excess for the system. Very small quantities of olive oil were recommended to be taken 2 or 3 times each day for a week to 10 days. This was to be followed by a rest period of a week or 10 days and then repeated. Suggestions were made to massage the bottoms of the feet, under the knees and the spine, below the kidneys, in the menstrual period with the following: to 4 ounces of denatured alcohol or pure grain alcohol, Russian white oil 1 ounce, oil of cedar 1 ounce, oil of sassafras ounce, witch hazel 1 ounce. These will be strengthening and have a tendency to draw the blood supply to these portions of the system. So, that the eliminations will become more regular and the activities of the organs that are involved in the functioning during such periods will become coordinating and balanced with the rest of the system. There is a river. Warnings were given not to take drugs to relieve this condition. The following questions and answers helped to clarify the conditions in the minds of those treating the body. Q1. What is the cause of and remedy for scaly spots on face and neck? A1. Impure circulation, as we have given. When we apply these conditions from time to time, gradually the change will come in the circulation in such a way as to relieve these conditions. Not so much appation is necessary from the external, but rather from the internal, to relieve the itching, or when the scalp or the cuticle become scaly. There may be the application of the violet ray over portions of the system. This would be very well. But, as we will find, these will be better relieved by the internal causes being treated, so that the external and internal, capillary and lymph circulations become more normal. Q2. Is the kernel at base of or below left ear causing these pains? A2. These come from the improper circulation. Improper contribution of elements from various glands in the system, tending to accumulate or gather in portions of the system. Hence the applications that are turning these to the better coordination in the eliminating systems of the body. Q3. Is there infection in the mastoid? A3. If we will follow the suggestions as given, we will remove these conditions. There is scarcely any organ in the system where there isn't some kind of infection, or some character of infection. For the natural condition of the system, TEM is to involve all forces in the body. We will eliminate these, if you will follow the suggestions that have been given. There is a river further reports January 26, 1933, for the past 2 weeks, MJ has not been so good. She is having stiffness in her joints and soreness. Last night she had another night sweat, the first in a long time. The last 2 baths have left yellow stains on the tub and washcloth. The lady at the library called MJ and had a long chat, says she has more pep. February 1st, 1933. MJ is feeling better again. She has a HTDE stiffness. June 11th, 1934. We are so happy to answer your recent note inquiring about MJ's health. She was feeling better. At the time, it seems. She has more strength and is feeling like a healthy person should. I would say that for the past 2 months she has had very HTTLE pain and has felt better generally. 2 months after the last report was received from the mother, the research department of the association requested Miss MCC to write a statement outlining her case and giving in brief the results obtained. A copy of this statement follows. Dayton, Ohio. Dear Mr. Hugh Lynn Casey, I am writing in answer to your request. In July of 1932, my right knee became affected with what we thought to be a very sore bruise or perhaps a strained ligament. I had been having night sweats for some nights previous to this. I went to a doctor and he prescribed hot salt packs for the afflicted joint. This didn't help at all. In fact, I grew steadily worse. During the month of August, I took diathermy treatments, as we heard that it oftentimes helped in similar cases to mine. But after quite a few treatments, I had 8 afflicted joints instead of the 6 I had when I started. The pain was intense, so much so that at times I could hardly there is a river stand it. I couldn't sleep, could hardly walk, and couldn't turn or twist my knees or NJDS at all. In September, I went to the best specialists that we could find here at home, and after being x-rayed completely and thoroughly examined, they said it was arthritis. This disease comes from some source of infection, but in my case they have never found that source. The only thing that the doctors thought might help was for me to go to Arizona to live. The medicine I had been taking hadn't helped, and strychnine had been prescribed for my heart. We were positively at the end of our rope. So my father decided to list our home for sale and send me to Arizona. In so doing, we met the man who so graciously told us of Mr. Casey. We wrote to him that same day, and a few days later he gave me a physical reading. He told me where my trouble lay, what to do and take, and completely changed my diet. Mother and I started in to follow everything to the letter. On the morning of the 3rd day, I awoke and could actually bend one knee. Our happiness knew no bounds. We were practically delirious with happiness. Since then I have steadily improved and am now practically well. I seldom have even a touch of arthritis, but when I do, a dose of the medicine prescribed sets me on my feet again. We will never be able to express our thanks to Mr. Casey for curing me and saving me from so horrible a death. As the reading stated, that I would gradually develop sleeping or stony paralysis. Signed, Miss MJ MCC. First, let us consider the personal side of this case. This young woman had never seen Edgar Casey when the reading was given. Like so many who ask for readings, she sought it as a last resort. She followed the suggestions in every detail and obtained results. Second, let us consider the case as it relates to the research work of the association. The results obtained in following there is a river. His readings would certainly indicate that such informer ion may prove helpful in discovering the causes and suggesting aids for even the most serious types of arthritis. Third, there is the possibility of securing information of a general nature on such ailments. To adequately carry forward research work of this character, the cooperation of pen-minded medical scientists must be secured. There is much to gain from such general studies, and nothing to lose. In January 1937, when D.E.H. returned from Vanderbilt Clinic, Nashville, Tennessee, to her home in a small Kentucky town, she was given up as a hopeless case. From her waist to her knees her legs were heat stone. The right arm was hard to the elbow. Her stomach and bowels were hard and her face was swollen and hard. The severe pain was constant. At times she could scarcely breathe, and rigors and sinking spells followed. The telegram received on January 8, 1937, describes the condition in part. Give me physical reading. In bed 8 weeks. Is there any trouble in chest? What causes aching over EN? Tire body. What is hardness through buttocks and upper leg? What causes temperature and sweating? And shortness of breath? What is burning along spine? The first reading was given on January 14th and an outline of the suggested treatment was wired to the family. The suggestions were followed carefully with the assistance of a practical nurse, and later a doctor worked sympathetically in following the treatment. Shortly after beginning the treatments recommended in the reading, some kind of injection was tried at the advice of a local physician. A relapse followed. The treatments, which had in part been discontinued during the period of the injections, were taken up again and followed carefully through the year. Ikere is a river. Progress was slow at first, but gradually the body responded, and this young woman was able finally to take up her normal activities. Extracts from readings. The following extracts from TLI 12 psychic readings given on this case have been selected with the view of presenting a picture of the gradual improvement. They also show the clarity of the analyses of the condition. January 14, 1937, as we find. It has been rattlier late in beginning with the disturbances that have arisen. These, as we find, are of a very subtle nature. Unless there can be some activities produced in which there is assistance to the vitality of the body in resisting the inroads of a tubercle in the nature in which it is involving not only tlios areas through the respiratory system but even the structural portions of TLI body, from which the blood supply attains, or gains its division of a supply of elements from which the red blood cells are builded, we find that the condition will rapidly continue to make inroads. Hence we find that which may be of an addition is to disseminate such forces as will bring relief by heat, and the elements that would carry those vibrations to not only the circulatory forces but through the muscular activi ties. Such measures must include elements which by the radical activity of their vibratory forces upon the physical body itself may assist in the elimination of die conditions. At the same time, these elements would supply to the system those forces to destroy or throw off the conditions by adding to the bloodstream that which will give resistance in Th hemoglobin and the effluvia of the blood. There is a river. The following treatment was outlined. A. Sponge body with saturated solution of bicarbonate of soda. B. Heavy, hot castor oil packs over abdominal area, lower lumbar, sacral, lower diaphragm and along spine. C. Half a teaspoonful of ventriculin twice each day. D. Discontinue all starchy foods. Give small quantities of beef juice frequently. E. Give enemas at the temperature of body when necessary, rather than cathartics. February 6, 1937, as we would find, if there is the full study of the conditions that exist, while not being fully understood by many, it will be seen that these are the indications and the disturbances as have been given, the effect of the tubercle activity to the superficial circular tyon, and with the properties in the system that make for the hardening through this portion of the system. It works a hardship for the circulation and for the general condition of the body. And this may become constitutional, as the very nature of consumptive force or the consumption of tissue by the disturbance, makes for this constitutional nature. Hence we would follow those suggestions as to external applications, as to massage, as to the diet, more closely. All of these, and we would find better conditions. The injections have caused disturbances to the heart's activity, to the coordination between the sympathetic and the cerebrospinal system. The sinking spells and the weakness are from the lack of assimilation of these conditions to the body. Either use one or the other. There is a river. The following treatment was outlined. Wet cell aptly. Aunts carrying alternate solutions of atomidine, chloride of gold and spirits of camphor. Attachments for 30 minutes. Each day alternating over certain lumbar, dorsal and cervical areas and over the lacteal duct area. February 24, 1937. As we find, while the existing conditions appear somewhat disturbing, unless it breaks farther, through strain or through some other overactivity of the body. This is the system's attempting to adjust itself and eliminate those disturbances in the circulation that have caused the checking of the flow to the L3-TNPH circulation. The following treatment was recommended: glycothione enema every other day, diluted gram alcohol rub over limbs and shoulders, use of camphor solution, with appliance 2 days in succession. March 5, 1937. Now the conditions are much on the improve by the vibrations that have been set up through the system by the low electrical forces and the rub. These should be kept. The plates of eye appliance should be kept a little cleaner. Not that the precautions haven't been taken, but so easily do the emanations from the body. With the little temperature and the poisons, and the very character of the condition, tend to clog that constant flow that should be had from the vibrations. The following treatments were added. Inhale fumes 2 or 3 times each day from pure apple brandy in charred keg. Sip beef juice often. Use red wine with brown bread in afternoons. There is a river note. This reading was given voluntarily, while in former Tyon was being sought for other individuals. March 23, 1937. While conditions as we find are far from being entirely satisfactory, there is much improvement shown in many ways that should be most gratifying to the body, as well as to those so anxious about the conditions. As we find in the present, a disturbance arises mostly from lack of activity to make for the proper character and manner of eliminations. Hence those tendencies are existent for the hepatic circulation to gather the poisons that are being thrown off and to tend to make for temperature that becomes aggravating to the circulation. Then, in those portions of the lymph circulation there is the hardening of the muscular forces in the activities, as through the shoulders and the neck, and as portions of the lower limbs and across the abdomen. These very influences then, of course, tend to make for a formation of gas. We would not change or alter so very much, then, the properties that have been indicated in the blood building, blood purifying, the rubs and the vibratory forces for making for the better coordination with the low electrical forces. Only the following treatments were added: high enemas, about once each week, of soda and salt solutions. Small quantities of olive oil should be taken 3 or 4 times each day. Keep body in open air as much as possible. April 26, 1937. These are the conditions as we find them in the present, and as has been indicated at other times, there is much improvement, yet much to be desired, in the bloodstream and in the manner of its circulation. In the superficial forces of the body, we still find there is a river. The indications of the effect of those disturbing factors that are a portion of the cause of the disturbing condition, or hardening and the withdrawal of proper circulation. These arise, to be sure, from an inherent condition, from those things that have disturbed the body. This comes about by the lack of the ability of the glandular system to effect the assimilations sufficient of the leukocytes to ward off or destroy this form or type of bacilli that has been and is still active. However, the causes are being reached, and the ability of building up in the blood supply is being gradually improved. Then, as there is sufficient improvement for the body to become more active in the open and to keep the necessary balance through the diets and through the activities from those influences and forces as may be given, there will be more and more of a gain, and there should be an eliminating of the causes and a building back to normalcy for the body. As to just how long this will require, to be sure, depends upon the responses of the system to a great extent to the applications and circumstances, as it were, for conditions as might cause or produce a detrimental condition in the experiences of the body. The following additional suggestions were made: keep up all treatments. Use mineral oil and a liver regulator when needed. Salt air. Pines and sand recommended as best en viron as soon as body was able to travel. This part of treatment was not followed. July 15, 1937. While there is still much to be desired in the general physical forces of the body, as we find the conditions in the main continue on the improve, there is still the necessity of keeping much of things suggested for the building of the body for the answers in the system against the cellular forces that tend to there is a river breakdown in the superficial circulation, and to cause much of the inflammation and the activities in the muscular forces of the body. Though these, too, show improvements somewhat, all treatments previously suggested were to be kept. A rub with a combination of olive oil and tincture of myrrh was to be given daily over knees, hips, abdomen and shoulders. A stricter alkaline diet was recommended. October 8, 1937. Now, as we find, while there is still much to be desired, the body is on the improve. These are conditions as we find to be reckoned within the present, and these the applications that are the better for the body in the present. The manipulations have been very good. These may be put a little further apart, but should be kept up as yet, say 3 in each 2 weeks for another 6 or 4 to 6 weeks. Then we would give the further instructions regarding these. There must be, as we find, care in the manner of the adjustments and manipulative measures. 4. Contrary to the ordinary conditions we find in the upper dorsal, and even through the cervical areas, the inclinations for the segments to be far apart rather than close together, and this tends to make for leakages, or too easily does the body, or those portions of same, become influenced by the impulses that arise through those portions of the body from which there is not the tension. Hence Tb's achy condition, or the hurting, or the feeling of a full flow. We find in I lumbar and through the sacral area a tendency of tightness. This makes for fat inclination, now, from which there are the inclinations of a flushing, that is, in the circulation, to the lower portions of the body. Hence in the manipulations these would be not so much there is a river movements of the segments as to stimulate the muscular forces along the side of the spine and following the nerve ends, or the nerve branches from those portions to their extremities in the body. All treatments were to be continued. 1 minim of atomidine was to be taken each day in half a glass of water. The body was advised not to take the typhoid fever serum. At this time, January 17, 1938, as we find, there has been the inclina tie-on for too severe a taxation to the body without taking those precautions to keep the body alkalized suffle 5 sciently, and the leaving off of suff B scient of the corrections osteopathically to keep the conditions in the cerebrospinal system tem from leaking, as it were, in the circulation has caused the body to become disturbed with cold, congestion, and the effect of poisons in the system. We would rest from so much taxation. This does not mean go to bed, or not work or play. Keep in the open, active to be sure. Make those applications which will break up the congestion, by the manipulations osteopathically, and by the deep inhalations from the charred keg with brandy in it. The solutions of camphor and gold chloride were to be discontinued, but the atomidine solution continued with the appliance. The body was to begin with halibut oil with viosterol. Osteopathic treatments were to be given once each week over the whole cerebrospinal system. Atomidine spray was to be used for throat and nose to prevent colds. General suggestions were made for keeping eliminations open. Warnings were given not to worry too much and not to overtax the nervous system. There is a river. The reports on this case are contained in letters from the mother, nurse, doctor, and patient. They cover a period of a year. Each one shows a gradual improvement. Extracts follow. January 26, 1937, from Mother, we are so very anxious over DS condition. She has not been so well since Sunday. She awakened with a weak spell Sunday morning, with another one at noon, and one at noon Monday. The hardness of the skin is very slightly less in the upper hips. March 5, 1937, from Mother, D has not been so well since I wired you last week. Her stomach is badly upset, she has severe pains in the lower abdomen and much gas. Her food WDLL not digest and she aches badly over entire body, more however in the right shoulder and down all of back. L. March 31, 1937, from Mother, she is feeling fairly well, Still aches badly and her skin is very sore. The stomach condition is some better. She is up for a few minutes each day now as you suggested, but is very weak. June 8, 1937, from patient, I still ache awfully bad. Of course it is worse in the back and across the shoulders, but the muscles over the entire body are affected. The right knee is sore at the place I bend it. The temperature started again after being free of it for about 3 weeks. June 22, 1937, from patient, you don't know how happy the last reading made me when you said to stay out there is a river. Skay up both the Esching and the choir, I did everything. But shout. I went to go to work by September if I possibly center and I'm about to WSLK myself to death to get strong enough. I know Esching won't be gone by then. Becuse it sure is setting me wild now. When I get the olive oil rub, following the appliance. My back between the shoulders and the neck bum's end feels like needles air sticking in it. July 12, 1937, I went to Menyo's Esseterdawai 2 weeks ago. Nothing would do my Emily but tit I go. We knew and heardness was much better but Esching still sticks with me. Sometimes it makes me so nervous tit I feel I'll lose my mind. Don't you think for minute tit I had thought of not following the resdings and my Emily achieve just as much confidence in them as I do. They just went to me. Checked over on account of this Esching. We caught JDent tell. Just how much was herdness and how much was muscle. They sighed THST just enough herdness was there with the symptoms for them to diagnose the trouble. They selled it. Sclerodermy. They sighed tit there was fluid in the tissues. And inflammation of the muscles. They found no focus of infection to cause the aching. All they told me to do was to take plenty of exercise and quit this high nervous tension I was under. They thought it came on from recurrent attacks of flu. I came straight home and got in the oil packs. August 19th. 1937, I played on the organ for 1/2 hour yesterday and was I happy. September 6th. 1937, think the choir practice on Friday night made my shoulders hurt a little more, at least that pulling sensation was a little worse. Last night though, I got along better and wasn't so nervous. I was thrilled over going back, but I knew the first time would be hard on me. I went over to Nashville last Saturday. There is a river 4 years later DH. Recommended readings for 2 individuals afflicted with similar conditions. Extracts from their letters follow. May 30th, 1941, from L.F. B. In April of 1938 I went to Vanderbilt Hospital to see if the doctors there could help me. They told me I had focal scleroderma and could do nothing to help me. Since then I have gradually grown worse. After seeing and talking to Miss D.H. last Sunday, I have renewed hope and wonder if you might help me. 2. My skin is not hard and swollen like Miss H.'s was, but white spots have come over my body, especially on my arms and legs. March 24, 1942, from LFB. In the past 6 weeks, much has happened. Of course, I'm certainly not well, but I do believe TM lots better. If only something could be done. About my knees. I feel real good sitting or lying down, but when I try to walk it's another story. May 30th, 1941, from DMC. I heard of you through a former patient of yours, Miss D.H., and I want to see if you can do anything for me. She said you cured her. I have been examined by lots of doctors. They say I have scleroderma. It was found a year ago last September. I had an operation a year ago. They cut some nerves in my back, but it did not do any good. I want to get well if it is possible. Please let me hear from you. February 5th, 1942, from DMC. Received my check. Reading and was very much pleased with it. I am feeling better, although my arms and hand carrot hurt me a lot. I was in hopes you would let me have some beef steak. I like it so well, but it is all right. I thank you for what you are doing for me. General debilitation. When the application for the first reading was made, Mrs. T was supposed to be dying. A number of members of her family had been called to her bedside. The physician pronounced her condition to be one of general debilitation. She experienced violent pains in the head which the strongest opiates failed to relieve. She had had severe heart attacks, and her pulse was rapid and weak. At times she was delirious, and at other times remained in an unconscious state for hours. She had no appetite, and digestion and assimilation were poor. There were large lumps on the hips and butt, tarks, almost blue in color, which were very painful to touch. Her limbs were stiff and rigid. She had lost weight at an alarming rate during the last few weeks before the reading was given. Laxatives and purgatives had failed to act, and the abdomen was distended and painful to touch. She had not been able to stand or walk for more than 2 years. The above is a report secured from members of Dye family, describing conditions existing at the time the first reading was given. The application for the reading came from the patient's son, who was living in Virginia Beach at the time. He had received a telegram telling him of his mother's critical condition and advising him to return home at once. He secured the first reading and took it home with him. There is a river first reading now, as we find those conditions that disturb the better physical forces of the body are rather of a complex nature. 4. There are both causes and effects that must be considered in giving or bringing any relief for the body. Many of the disturbing conditions have been of long standing, hence have become of such a nature that the system has adjusted itself to the disorders. In bringing relief or resuscitating forces to the system, all of these conditions must be taken into consideration. 4. Many have reached the proportions where not only the physical body but the mental body is also affected. These, then, are the conditions as we find them with this body, JHT, we are speaking of. We find the blood supply very low in vitality. And while the circulation becomes disturbed, the ability in the circulation to carry on through a strong heart action has oft saved the body from disintegration. There needs to be as simulated in this portion, then, that which VDTH the strong Heart's activity will build resuscitating plasm through the circulatory system. The nerve system, as we find, has reached such a condition that at times it has besiome almost exhausted. Hence, there are periods when there is not in any way near the normal reaction from administrated forces, or that reaction, which might be expected to be the result from the administration of active principles into the system. Hence little medicine, as medicine, is effective, only palliatives, sedatives or hypnotics, and these at times lose their effectiveness in the system. What, then, are the causes in the physical functionings? Are the organs involved in their functioning, or have such IJTL GILXILJ XO JTL JLUXIJ JJL star inroads been made as to cause organic conditions? Or are the conditions of a general or a constitutional nature, VNLB, all of the organs working at variance one to another? All of these conditions exist and more, for, as seen, there has long been a disturbance in the sensory organism wherein the auditory forces have been affected. And in periods back, there was such a plethora condition in the organs of the pelvis, in the activities of the assimilating system, as to necessitate the removal of portions of the organs themselves. Thus we have had an inroad into the effectual activity of the nerve forces in the action of organs, and in the creation of resuscitating forces in the system, until, working under the strain and stress of adhesions and lesions, there has been little of a normal activity in digestion, surfeiting of the system, in relation to assimilations through the body. Hence a general debilitation has set in throughout the system, so that all of the organs are affected, not in the as of organic disturbances, other than in their ties to create the proper functionings of their respective cycle of activity in the body. Hence the conditions in the present. Then, in meeting the conditions, as we find, the addition of certain forces that will work with the activities of the body may bring a much nearer normal force for the ability of the system to respond and become nearer in the way of distributing the necessary resuscitating forces throughout the system.